Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. As always, I am your host, Charles Hamaker here. You can see Bella Garcia still taking some time. Thankfully, her dog, Rod, had successful surgery, so that's good to know that Rod is in recovery there. And again, hoping for the best for Rod, Matt, Belle. And again, Belle will join the show whenever she feels ready to do so. I'm not here to rush anybody into decisions that they don't feel comfortable making. So in terms of our Seattle sports teams, the Seahawks lost a brutal, another frustrating contest, this time to the Carolina Panthers at home. The Seattle Mariners had some minor news, but some interesting notes from the winter meetings. The Seattle Storm are going to take a look at Breanna Stewart in the news. We have some positive news in the light of Brittney Griner, as well as take a look back at the WNBA schedule release. The Sounders have some news about a young midfielder turned right back potentially. The Kraken snapped their 3-game win streak last night, thankfully, and dropped a ton of news on us this morning. Let's see, what else do we got here? The Reign are silent this week. The Seawolves continue to make impressive signings, bolstering their roster fresh off of an MLR title appearance. And the Seattle SeaDragons unveiled their 2023 uniforms, which drew the ire of some fans. I'll let you decide on that once we get to that segment. But taking that all into consideration, we're going to jump straight into our Seattle Seahawks news here. Again, a tough loss to the Carolina Panthers, a frustrating one, as the Seahawks fell 30-24. This was just a game where Seattle, again, could not stop the run. That sounds like a continuing trend, does it not? It just couldn't stop the run. The game started off poorly. The team was down by 3 possessions at one point in the first quarter. Geno threw 2 interceptions. It was his first 2-interception game since, I believe, 2018 was the word that I received on that. Just a tough one there. Seattle was able to bring it close, but was not able to get the stops necessary or convert offensively in those late stages to be able to win that game, and now drop to 7-6, and they are out of the playoff hunt currently. They're out of a playoff seed. They're currently in the hunt. Excuse me. And they're third in the division. No, pardon me. They are second in the division behind the 49ers. So tough one here. We'll look at the inactives really quick just so you get an idea of what the Seahawks were dealing with. The inactives list looked like this. Offensive lineman Jake Curran, running backs DJ Dallas and Kenneth Walker III were not able to go for this one, so the run game on the Seahawks side of things was heavily impacted. Wide receiver Penny Hart was inactive. D-line Shelby Harris, who was a surprise add to this list late. He was battling the flu and could not make that game, which is a big loss on that defensive line. And cornerbacks Artie Burns and Justin Coleman were inactive for that game. So we'll look now at offensive and defensive players of the game here before we get to general discussion. I went with Marquise Goodwin as my offensive player of the game here. 5 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. Led the Seahawks offense and was really the main bright spot on that offense. Geno had 3 touchdown passes, but the 2 interceptions really hinders him there. No rushing game really to speak of. Tyler Lockett would actually break a Seahawks record by recording 6 consecutive games with a touchdown reception. On the defensive side of the ball, I went with Bruce Irvin. Bruce had 6 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 quarterback hit. Just generally filling up the stat sheet there is why I went with Bruce. So now let's get to the general discussion of this game. It's tough to imagine that this Seahawks team can really make any sort of playoff push, any sort of noise as the season progresses when they really can't stop the run at all. I mean, Carolina ran the ball 46 times for a grand total of 223 yards. So over the last 3 games, Seattle's opponents have been able to rush for about 700 rushing yards. That's just horrendous. That is terrible. This was more of the Seahawks defense that we saw earlier in the year, and we're wondering if it could get any better. There was that stretch of time where this defense looked great, looked far improved, and was help winning them games, and now we don't know where that really is. It's really tough. It's tough to look at this team and say have much confidence really in them, just considering how poor the rush defense has been. not being able to get stops late in the game. Seattle had several opportunities where the defense actually did get them stops. There was a fourth down stop, so turnover on downs. And then on the other side of things, the offensive side of the ball couldn't convert when it mattered. There's too many punts late in that game, and it's just a frustrating. This Carolina team has seen some recent success as of late, but still, this is a game that you should have won, all things considered. And again, to go back to the beginning of the season, obviously, this is not a team that many of us expected to compete the way that they have over the course of this 2022 season. Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have won games like this. Even the Tampa game, a bunch of these losses are just downright frustrating. And the road won't get much easier for them as they now go on to face the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. If we look back to week 2 when these teams faced off, Seattle just looked horrendous, couldn't get anything going. The only points really that they got were off of a blocked field goal that Tariq Woolen took all the way back for a touchdown, and the 49ers just able to have their way. Taking that into consideration now, this 49ers team Brock Purdy has stepped in for Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's filling that situation well. They've added Christian McCaffrey. Unfortunately, Deebo Samuel went down with injury, so hoping he's all right. You never want to see injury. But the point being is that this 49ers offense has a ton of talent, let alone their defensive side of the ball, which is what gave the Seahawks fits in week 2. So this is a big game on Thursday night, and it's on short rest coming off of this loss where you couldn't stop the run. The 49ers can run the ball well with, obviously Christian McCaffrey, let alone who they've got on the offensive weaponry side of the ball. It's a big game. And it may help decide whether or not the Seahawks are going to the playoffs or not. So, and again, to go back to what I just talked about, this is not a team that a lot of people expected to be competitive necessarily throughout the course of the year. So I can't be mad at it. Your draft pick is still pretty damn good in the first round of things. But again, it's just frustrating when you see games like this that are in reach and you see the adjustments that need to be made and they're not being made. And these are adjustments that have been, pointed week after week, essentially. So, why that's not being fixed, why those adjustments aren't being made, why the tune-ups aren't being put into place, that's on the coaching staff. At the end of the day, that's on the coaching staff. Does some of that potentially fall on the personnel? Yes. But at the end of the day, the coaching staff's there to be able to put the players that you have on the roster in the best position to succeed. And that's not happening currently. So this is a big game on Thursday. Regardless, let's get to the rest of the news for our Seahawks here. In sort of terms of injuries, December 6th, safety Josh Jones was placed on IR with a hamstring injury. So that's safety position is already sort of reeling there with Jamal Adams going down earlier in the season. Ryan Neal is currently nursing some injuries, not only an arm one, but a knee injury. He was on the injury report this week with a knee injury. Now Josh Jones, essentially a third string guy, is out for on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. As a corresponding move, the team signed running back Wayne Gallman Jr. to the practice squad. As you can see on your screen here, December 10th, the team activated linebacker John Radigan from the physically unable to perform list and elevated running back Godwin Igwebuike and wide receiver Laquan Treadwell from the practice squad. On December 11th, it was announced that Ken Walker III and DJ Dallas were both out at running back for Seattle, and that Tony Jones Jr. was expected to get the start at running back with Travis Homer to back up. So if you look at that game, I know I talked about the offensive issues where Seattle really couldn't get the ball going to begin the game, and then in the end when you needed those points. Hard to blame much of that on the running game, just considering you're down to your effective third and fourth string guys. If you factor in Rashad Penny, Ken Walker, Rashad Penny, DJ Dallas, Travis Homer, Tony Jones Jr., you're effectively down to your fourth and fifth guys, which is not ideal. And Godwin Igwebuike did well on the kickoff side of things, so some people want him to be the kick returner going forward. We'll see about that. I know he was the guy that's kind of hovered around the practice squad, and I don't know if that warrants keeping him up, but nice to see someone take advantage of their opportunity when that arose. So we'll continue with the news here. Just a small note on injury before we go to team notes. In the third quarter, defensive tackle Al Woods left with a heel injury and was doubtful to return. So, again, an already poor rush defense for the Seahawks just loses another key contributor there. Yeah, that rush defense is just bad, and I don't know when it will turn around. We get to team notes here as we look towards more of a positive sort of situation. As on December 6th, it was announced that wide receiver Tyler Lockett was named as the team's nominee for the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award. Lockett is the first Seahawks player to be nominated for the Man of the Year award in consecutive seasons since the year 2000, and only one of 5 players in team history with multiple nominations. Both Russell Wilson and Steve Largent are the only 2 players in franchise history to win the award, which is considered one of the NFL's most prestigious honors. Lockett was also last year's winner of the Steve Largent Award in the franchise, given to the player who best exemplifies the spirit, dedication, and integrity of the Seahawks, as well as the 2021 Art Rooney Sportsmanship Award. And this year, he was voted as a team captain for the first time in his career. Lockett recently launched a college scholarship program in which he selected 7 students to receive $34,000 in scholarships for the 2021-22 academic year. Those students were awarded scholarships have since been admitted to Tennessee State University, Wichita State University, Northeastern Oklahoma A&M College, Oral Roberts University, and Tulsa Community College. Lockett also hosted 12 Tulsa public school students as part of a job shadow program, with students participating in a 3-day job shadow with Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, Keller Williams Realty, and the Seattle Seahawks. Those participating students were awarded $5,000 scholarships for a total of $60,000 in scholarships. So, just to generally wrap that up, you can tell just, if you're a follower of Tyler Lockett in any way, shape, or form, he's a good dude. I mean, just from the general story about how, I remember he was drafted primarily as a kick returner out of Kansas State with the 69th pick in that draft. He was selected in, and just to see him sort of grow, he's a realtor now in the off season. I believe he recently got married in the offseason as well. He's been a fan favorite for many reasons, including the toe tap touchdowns that he's got over his time in the blue and green. So to see him nominated for this award makes a lot of sense, and certainly we'd like to see him win that award as well. So we'll look at some league news here to finalize our Seahawks segment. December 8th, the House released the Snyder Report. A committee found that Commanders owner Daniel Snyder permitted and participated in a toxic culture and obstructed congressional inquiry. So things continue to be poor there for the Washington Commanders owner Daniel Snyder, and you can just hope that sooner rather than later he is out as their owner. December 9th, the Saints were fined over $500,000 by the NFL. The league levied a huge fine against defensive end Cameron Jordan, coaches, and the team itself for allegedly faking an injury against the Buccaneers. On December 11th, Tom Brady could be back in 2023. Brady will consider all options when he hits free agency this offseason. So it seems we can't escape that man just yet. We'll look ahead towards record and standings here for our Seahawks, who, again, as I mentioned, have a tough game against the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. The Seahawks sit at a 7-6 record, second in the NFC West. They are currently in the hunt for a playoff spot in the NFC. Looking ahead, their next matchup is December 15th versus the San Francisco 49ers with a kickoff time of 5:15 Pacific time on Amazon Prime. That is Thursday Night Football. It's a big game. Not only are you looking to keep your playoff hopes alive, but, obviously divisional bragging rights and the fact that you got wiped with the team wiped the floor with you last time both met in week 2. So we will transition here over to our Seattle Mariners, who continue to be in the thick of the offseason. And, despite some moves being made and some upgrades taking place, a lot of the fan base is still upset with the lack of move and lack of money spent in this offseason for the Mariners. So before we get into that and the winter meetings news, on December 5th, pitching coach Pete Woodworth was named Baseball America's MLB Coach of the Year. Woodworth, 34 years old, spent the 2022 season in his 3rd year as the team's pitching coach. The Mariners pitching staff went 90-72 with 40 saves and a 3.59 ERA, setting a single-season franchise record with 1,391 strikeouts on the year. Mariners manager Scott Service said Woody has done an incredible job of helping our pitchers get the most of their ability. Along with our bullpen coach, Trent Blank, they have created an awesome environment around our pitching staff with their communication skills and baseball acumen. Woodworth oversaw a Seattle pitching staff that featured a starting rotation that posted the second most quality starts in the American League with 79, and a bullpen that led the American League in WHIP 1.08. Opponent batting average with 2.07 and hits per 9 innings 6.72, in addition to a strikeout to walk ratio of 3.22. As the youngest pitching coach in MLB, Woodworth helped Seattle's pitching staff improve as the season went on, leading the majors in lowest average exit velocity at 87.4 miles an hour during the second half of the season, per Baseball Savant. From August 23rd to September 14th, the Mariners starting rotation went 11-3 with a 1.68 ERA, with 14 walks and 114 strikeouts in those 20 starts, setting a franchise record for the lowest starters ERA over a 20-game stretch. So it's safe to say, with all of those numbers and stats that I just threw at you, that just as if you're a fan of the Mariners and you pay attention to that sort of thing, Pete Woodworth's value to this ball club is incredible. Just, you talked about Trent Blank and the bullpen coach, and the bullpen as a whole, the whole Los Bomberos thing. That pitching staff, and I talk about coaching staff, not necessarily the players, there has been able to take a bunch of players over the time that Woodworth has been here in this organization and really help them improve, take it to another gear. And some of them resurrect their careers. You look at Chris Flexen, a guy that was in the KBO and came to this Mariners team and was a key starter for them in 2021 and provided key innings this past season. Paul Seawolves was a guy who was kind of looked at as an outcast, has been able to take the young pitchers of Logan Gilbert and George Kirby to another level as they've reached the MLB sort of stage. So it's really cool to see Woodworth get acknowledged for this, and appreciate him liking our post about it on Instagram. This one, not too much of a surprise here, adding to his impressive trophy case after just year one. Julio Rodriguez was named to the All-MLB second team, which was a fan and player voted thing. So, I mean, I could sit here and throw more of the numbers of Julio at you, but we've done that as he's been given several Rookie of the Year awards, given the Real Rookie of the Year award, etc., being named to the All-Star game. We could get to that, but impressive to see Julio just continue to add to his essentially stacked trophy case after just 1 year. Now we get to the notes from the winter meetings, which a lot of people have been waiting for in terms of free agents, spending money, adding and just generally improving this Mariners team. Scott Service said that the Mariners are currently in discussions with Luis Castillo and Nelson Cruz. Cruz is currently the general manager of the Dominican Republic team for the World Baseball Classic. Those two talking about whether Castillo will pitch or not in the World Baseball Classic. Like most managers, Service would prefer that his team's ace does not pitch in the World Baseball Classic. That one I'd say it's a little bit more lighthearted, but I don't know if it's more serious than not. Jerry Dipoto reiterated that they would like to add at least one or even two hitters to their current roster. A right-handed bat that could play corner outfield would be ideal, or a player that could play the corner infield spots, considering that the team lost Carlos Santana to the Pittsburgh Pirates. When asked if they were nearing the goal line or in the red zone on closing any deals for those position players of need, President of Baseball Operations Jerry Dipoto joked that they weren't past the 50-yard line yet. Adding a player that could play the corner infield spots would be a nice luxury, since the Mariners aren't quite positive on Evan White's health and have no cover for Ty France if he were to get injured, like they did last year with Carlos Santana. Dipoto confirmed that utility player Dylan Moore will undergo surgery for a core injury that has nagged him since the end of the season. Per sources, Moore is in Philadelphia at the Vincere Institute to undergo the procedure in the coming days. It's a 6 to 8 week recovery. Dipoto, who found out about it recently, does not think it's an overly concerning piece of information and is expected to be full strength for the start of spring training. So just looking at that there, it's interesting. The most interesting tidbit there from Dipoto was adding one or two hitters to this roster at least. They talked about the corner outfield, with that left field sort of being it's not established necessarily. I know you've got a couple players that could fit in there, Jared Kelenic, Sam Haggerty, and then the corner infield as well, with being able to give guys. So Abraham Toro's gone with that trade for Colton Wong. and Carlos Santana is gone. So yeah, you really do need someone who's going to be able to play the corner infield. And obviously you'd like that to be someone who can contribute on the offensive end as well. So technically then the second most important piece of information is that Dipoto basically, he says that this team isn't anywhere close on a deal to add to those positions of need. I've been lied to before by these coaches and staff members, with the media quotes, but I don't know. It's really interesting to see. I know a bunch of people have wanted the Mariners to make certain moves for some of the bigger name players in this offseason, but that just hasn't happened. And a bunch of these players are honestly being overpaid. So I'm okay with that. But obviously, the urgency to be able to upgrade your team, with Houston still remaining a tough team to play in your own division. The Rangers are adding pieces. It's a critical time, and you'd like to improve as well. So some other sort of notes here. On the 7th of December, the team signed relief pitcher Casey Sadler to a minor league deal. He missed all of last season with a shoulder injury. His 2021 season is what got people so excited, and that's something that you can add to Pete Woodward's praise. Sadler in his 2021 season pitched 40.1 innings, had a 0.67 ERA, 37 strikeouts, and an opponent batting average of 1.43. So if the Mariners are able to get that Sadler back, it's a huge addition to this bullpen, something that a lot of people were hoping to see in the 2022 bullpen, but the shoulder injury obviously held Sadler out. Also on the 7th, in the Rule 5 draft, the team selected right-handed pitcher Chris Clark from the Cubs AAA affiliate. Last year, Clark struck out 110 batters with 25 walks and 120 and a third innings pitched last season between high A and double A for the Cubs farm system. So taking that all into consideration, I would say be patient, but I know a lot of the fan base doesn't want to do that. I know we're in December. Pitchers and catchers don't report until February 14th if the current timeline sticks. But I do understand that seeing a bunch of these moves, and I'm going to rattle off a bunch of them, hurts. And especially considering that the Mariners did lose outfielder Mitch Haniger to free agency. I respect it. I understand it. With the move for Teoscar Hernandez, I was kind of leaning towards the fact that maybe this team is, looking in another direction, and I was right, unfortunately. So we'll look at free agency and the Mariners missing out on some of these players. Mitch Haniger signed a 3-year, $43.5 million deal with the San Francisco Giants. So Mitch returns home, gets to stay on the West Coast. Outfielder Masataka Yoshida signed a 5-year, $105.4 million deal with the Boston Red Sox over pay. Outfielder Aaron Judge signed a 9-year, $360 million deal with the Yankees. Judge saying he didn't want to surrender his legacy over dollars. I still don't think the Yankees are going to win the World Series anytime soon, but hey, do you, buddy. Shortstop Xander Bogaerts signed an 11-year, $280 million deal with the San Diego Padres. Outfielder Brandon Nimmo signed an 8-year, $162 million deal with the New York Mets. And Kodai Senga, starting pitcher, signed a 5-year, $75 million deal with the New York Mets. Probably the only non-overpaid deal amongst a bunch of those currently taking place in free agency. So again, it's going to be tough. I understand seeing a bunch of these players sign to different teams, but with the amount of money that's being shelled out, Jerry Dipoto has also basically said that we're not going to just spend to spend. We're going to make smart decisions for the future of this franchise, in addition to, players that are going to help in the current state of where this team is. And they don't want to overpay and sacrifice resources that would help this team going forward for a right now situation. So I understand that, but I understand also the sort of need for urgency in this free agency period. On December 6th, a report came out that the MLB used 3 types of balls over the 2022 season, despite Commissioner Rob Manfred saying that they had to use 1 type of ball. A SABR award-winning physicist says that the evidence indicates that 3 different baseballs were used throughout the 2022 seasons. A quote-unquote Goldilocks ball was used the most for 3 types of games: specialty games, all-star weekends, special promo games, the postseason, and New York Yankees games. Isn't that kind of funny? On December 11th, it was announced that Brian Reynolds' price tag is Soto-like. The Pirates reportedly want a lot for their disgruntled outfielder, who executives describe as unlikely to move. I know that this is Brian Reynolds of the Pittsburgh Pirates, pretty solid outfielder, has some defensive struggles, is someone that a lot of people want via trade for the Mariners, considering also that left field spot. But when you talk about his price tag being similar to that of Juan Soto, no, that shouldn't be considered serious, and the Mariners should not entertain that type of deal. You don't want to, no. I know that that's something that people are interested in, and if somehow Jerry Dipoto were able to pull off a move that doesn't hurt this team too much, sure, go ahead. But I don't see that happening. So anyway, I digress. Let's move on. So normally, I'd say nothing's looking ahead here, but just so you get an idea of how long it'll take before we see Mariners baseball again, pitchers and catchers report on February 14th of 2023. So put that in the calendar, and we'll look ahead to that. Switching over here to our Seattle Storm here. On December 8th, Breanna Stewart was named as the 2022 Clio Awards Impact Award recipient. Stewart was quoted as an activist and professional basketball player for the Storm. Excuse me. Breanna sets records both in basketball and life. A natural on social media, Stewie is a universally liked star, known for her humble yet determined spirit and matter-of-fact honest personality. Just as impressive off the court, Stewie fought adversity and successfully rehabbed from a season-ending Achilles injury in 2019. During that time, she decided to freeze her eggs and fell in love with her now wife, Martha, which ultimately led to her inspirational journey of becoming mom to Ruby through gestational surrogacy. Destigmatizing fertility conversations for sport and women in the workplace, Stewie shattered the notion that a woman cannot be the best player in the world and have a baby. As she asserts, why can't I do both? Defying expectations and convention, count on Stewie to continually set records and milestones both in basketball and in life. Since the moment that Stewart turned pro, she has embraced the opportunity to advocate for causes bigger than herself. When she won the 2016 ESPY for Best Female Athlete, she gave a speech calling out the media for its lack of coverage of women's sports. Not us, though. That same year, she joined her colleagues across the league in standing up for Black Lives Matter. In 2017, she stood up for the LGBTQ community and proudly championed the inclusive culture of the WNBA. And in October of 2018, she came forward as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse with a moving first-person essay with the Players Tribune, going on to launch a national campaign to help other victims and their families. Just going over that sort of list of accolades and what Stewie has been able to do off the court. We already know, as covering the Storm, and anyone that's a Storm fan, knowing what Stewie can do on the court is one thing, but seeing that the woman and the person that Stewie is, it absolutely makes sense to see her named as the Impact Award recipient for the 2022 Clio Awards. It's hard to say much else. I mean, it's incredible to see the, obviously the athlete and the competitor that Breanna Stewart is, but just what she's able to accomplish off the court. In terms of how impressive they are, you could say they're equal, just, and that's saying a lot because Stewie is an incredibly impressive athlete. We want to look now toward, I wanted to just pick out a few games that I'm sort of proverbially circling on the Storm schedule, which you don't necessarily want to do. You want to play all the games the same. You don't want to necessarily look ahead to certain ones, but just in terms of defining this 2023 Storm team, opening night's going to be big. May 20th versus the Aces here at Climate Pledge Arena. What is that starting five going to look like? What is the 13-player roster going to look like? The bench. This is a big sort of, it's a big season for the Storm. I keep saying that. I know I keep putting that out there. I don't mean to put any pressure on General Manager Talisa Rea. Met her over the weekend. I apologize to Talisa. But it's big. This Storm front office knows that. With Drew Lloyd being under contract, currently unsure of Breanna Stewart's plans, whether to play overseas or to play here. And just with the general marketing, it seems like Stewie's going to be here. I don't know. But then you've got the point guard situation to figure out. You have to let Ezi Magbagor play the 5. The bench, the Storm bench has been so key to its championship titles over the 4 times that they've accomplished that feat. With players like Sammy Whitcomb coming off the bench, what happens there? Who do you add to help you defensively, like when you had an Alicia Clark a few years ago? it's going to be a big offseason for this Storm team, and seeing what that starting five will look like when May 20th hits it'll be interesting to see what takes place over free agency, but we've got to get through that still. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight, we talked about this last week, but 7 of Seattle's last 9 games of the year are on the road. Seattle faced a tough sort of situation with, I believe, their last 3 games of the season last year being on the road, and they were able to win out. So just disregard the fact that 7 of the last 9 of the on the road. What sort of situation will the Storm team be by the time those last 9 games of the season roll up? Will they matter? Will it just be maybe we're just developing some young talent, or will it be Seattle's got to get through these 7 of the last 9 to secure their playoff spot and their seeding? Again, this offseason will really shape a lot of this, and it's going to be incredible to see how this all shapes up. So that was just wanted to, look at some of the key dates from the Storm season. And thankfully, we have finally a positive Brittney Griner update. Finally, in the early morning hours of December 8th, we would find out that Brittney Griner was finally released from Russian custody. The United States released Russian arms dealer Victor Bout in the exchange, according to multiple reports on Thursday. Griner had been imprisoned in Russia since her arrest on February 17th on drug charges. She had been convicted and given a 9-year sentence, spending 294 days in Russian custody. It's great to just finally see Griner be able to get away from all of that, just considering how hellish, I had imagined that being, and just hope that things are, going to go well. I know that over the weekend, I had read the report that she had gotten a workout in. First thing that she did was dunk. So that's nice to see, but just, keeping track of this timeline, Yahoo Sports did a great job of sort of highlighting this. Back in February 17th, she was detained going through security at an airport after officials found vape cartridges containing hashish oil in her luggage. Russia didn't announce that for several weeks, though. So with Russia going through their troops invading Ukraine, this complicated Griner's return before a lot of people even know that this was a thing that was taking place. May 3rd, the government classified Griner as wrongfully detained. The WNBA put the BG logo on every floor on the courts. Just, really tough situation to follow, really. And, having the tough update that we did for you last week, and just glad that, just a few days after that, we have a positive update to share for you. And just to address the sort of comments and the stupidity that we get whenever we give updates on Brittney Griner. This is an American citizen. I have to put that up there as won gold for this country on multiple occasions. Wears, the red, white, and blue, represents this country on several different occasions. Was prescribed. This is medically prescribed. It's the hashish oil. I'm not too, up to date on THC and all that, but this was medically prescribed. It wasn't just, she had weed, do the crime, do the time sort of thing. This is medically prescribed to help deal with pain. And it was a much smaller dose than another American had been carrying, I believe, a few years ago, and she had gotten a much shorter sentence than the one Griner got from the start. This was a ploy to exploit Griner because of her status. And, unfortunately, I know a lot of people get angry and say, all these horrible comments because of who she is as a Black woman in this country. Just for shame, honestly, for shame, So glad to have Griner back, really. Something I talked about with our lead photographer, Liv Lyons, was that Griner had shaved, you can see in the photo, had shaved her hair off because of how in the penal colony that she was in, while washing her hair and then heading back to wherever she was, would cause her to be really cold. So she had shaved her hair in preparation for the long run. Shit's a shame, just a damn shame. So glad to know that Griner is back in American custody, and, she'll take things day by day. But just glad to know that she's back and she's safe. So we will now move over to our Sounders here with a smaller bit of news. On December 7th, it was announced that young former midfielder, I guess, Reed Baker-Whitting, is training with SC Freiburg. He could head out on a possible loan. That is what Freiburg is currently looking into. SC Freiburg is in Bundesliga, currently sitting at second in the Bundesliga table. They're a German club that is exploring a loan with an option to buy Baker-Whitting. Baker-Whitting has apparently been training with both the first and reserve teams as a right back, and Freiburg is potentially interested in bringing him on in a loan with an option to buy. It has been common for MLS teams to retain a significant sell-on clause when they send young players to Europe, something the Sounders did when they sold Henry Wingo to Norway's Molde and later collected an additional $200,000 after he moved to Ferencváros. Notably, Baker-Whitting wouldn't be able to actually move to Freiburg until he turns 18 in March. So the young 17-year-old drawing the attention on the international stage. I know that Craig Weibel, as general manager now of the Sounders, has said that he is going to look into loans more, whether that's players going out or coming in. And this would be a big one to begin. I know a lot of media covering MLS and soccer as a whole has revered Baker-Whitting pretty highly. So it's obvious that, there's spotlight on him. But whether that option to buy is there is something I think is key, because, getting him some experience and having him train over with Freiburg is great for his development. But do you want him around, or do you say, hey, we're going to take the potential option to buy and just run with that? So that'll be something to keep an eye on. But it's interesting. It's interesting to note that, as a 17-year-old, he's getting this sort of attention. And again, I know that a lot of media has kept an eye on him and reviews sees him as a potentially great player going forward. So keep an eye on that. Transitioning here over to our Kraken here, who, had been in a little bit of a rut. They lost that last game of the last week that we had been giving you updates. And it continued in their games on December 6th and 9th. December 6th versus the Montreal Canadiens, a 4-2 loss to close out that homestand. Player of the game forward Shane Wright. Wright scoring his first career NHL goal against the team that passed him up first overall in the draft, doing so in the first period. Really nice to see Shane do that. And then we'll get to the news about it. But it was a nice week, effectively, for Shane, scoring that first NHL goal. On December 9th at the Washington Capitals, a 4-1 loss. Player of the game defenseman Adam Larson. Larson scoring the only goal of the game for the Kraken, recording 1 point, a 1+-, 3 shots on goal, 6 hits, and 2 blocks. So Seattle, in a 3-game losing streak, kind of unfortunate, frustrating. Defensive lapses remained apparent, and sort of unsure when that'll change. That losing streak started in a 5-1 loss against the Florida Panthers. The teams would rematch on December 11th in Florida's house, and Seattle would win that game 5-2. Player of the game forward Andrei Burakovsky, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, a 1+-, 2 shots, and 2 blocks. Now, before we get to general discussion on these 3 losses, I'll go over player of the week for me. I selected Philipp Grubauer. Now, I know Philipp's been the topic of discussion for a lot of fans, whether they know about the actual game of hockey or they're box score watchers, or they just like to just pick on the goalie because it's an easy scapegoat. Well, I'm not here for that sort of thing. Grubauer, over the past week, you'll see the stats here: a .890 save percentage, recording 57 games, 57 saves over the past 2 games he's played. The Florida game was tough due to poor play all around, and the Panthers power play going 3 for 4. Seattle gave up a bunch of stupid penalties in that game and just did not play well at all in the loss to Florida that began their 3-game losing streak. But you look at the game against Washington, the 4-1 loss against Washington there. Grubauer actually had a 2.2 goals saved above expected versus the Capitals against his former team. And just if you've actually been watching these games like we have, Grubauer has been exceptional. He's been great and has been keeping his team in games. But, the casual fans, the box score watchers, those who don't actually watch the game of hockey that's taking place in front of them on their screens, in the arena, or maybe you're listening on the radio with our guys Everett Fitzhugh and Dave Tomlinson, don't know what they're talking about. If I had the opportunity, if I had the technology to sit here and we'd go on ESPN and I blow up the play and I circle where the turnover happens, in the own D zone, or where both defensemen come down and leave the goalie exposed, I'd sit here and do that with a lot of his goals. just to expose how poor that narrative is against Grubauer. But just seeing the play, including this Florida game, the past few games for this, well, I would include the Montreal game. Martin Jones had a few those goals he should have saved. But just knowing that you've got this talent in goal, and, Steve Briere, the goaltender coach, has done a solid job. Just the defensive mistakes have been poor. And I've been talking to someone made a great point about yesterday's game, was that was an all-around win against Florida, 5-2. Yes, that second goal that Florida got came in the late stages, but Seattle played a really solid game defensively. And that first goal, actually, I just gave the example. The puck was behind the net, and both Kraken defenders came behind the net. That can't happen. You can't have both of your defensemen do that. And it left a Panthers skater wide open net front to beat Martin Jones. It was a solid game all around. Seattle looked much better than they had in their last few games. And it's a sign of what this team, as we've talked about several times before, what they can be. So happy. Just hope you can continue it, because this road trip doesn't get any easier. Now, we'll talk about the road trip in a bit, but we do have a good amount of Kraken news to go over here. On December 7th, just shortly after Shane Wright scored his first NHL goal, Shane Wright headed to Moncton and Team Canada, and will play in the World Juniors for his native Canada, coming off of a high note of scoring his first career NHL goal. You can see the celebration there captured by Liv Lyons in that photo. Assuming that Team Canada plays for a medal, Wright's potential return game with the Kraken would be on January 7th at the Ottawa Senators. So hoping that, Shane's able to do well there with Team Canada. He goes over a successful conditional loan with AHL Coachella Valley, scored his first NHL goal with the Kraken upon his return, and then heads to World Juniors with Team Canada. So it's a solid time right now for Shane Wright, I'd say. In less positive news, on December 10th, defenseman Jamie Alexiak was suspended 3 games for an illegal check to the head on Washington's Alexander Alexiev in that tough loss to the Capitals. Now, when I talk about that Capitals game and how frustrating that was, this was it. Alexiak just, a lot of people have mentioned his height. He's a 6'7" guy. I understand it, but it was a poor check. Obviously hit Alexiev in the head. That's unfortunate. But Alexiak has just been a guy that has made a lot of defensive mistakes this year and even last year. I know he's a favorite. There's the Big Rig comment, the nickname, and all that sort of thing. I like his ability to bring the puck up the ice. But at the end of the day, he makes a lot of defensive mistakes, and that hurts this team. It's just been a frustrating sort of occurrence, and that sort of thing has got to change. His play has got to change. He's got to be better, just generally. So December 11th, it was announced that there we go. Samantha Holloway has joined her billionaire father, David Bonderman, as an equal co-owner of the Seattle Kraken. Holloway has founded 2 tech companies and was named chairperson of the Kraken's executive committee back in March. Holloway becomes the NHL's 3rd principal female team owner, and we'll have some more info on that for you next week when we get into more of a deep dive on that, but we do have a good amount of Kraken news to get through. But congratulations to Holloway on that honor. The 3rd principal female team owner is a big deal in and of its own. On the 12th, the team recalled defenseman Gustav Olofsson from the Coachella Valley. Wrong one. There it is. Coachella Valley Firebirds in 15 games with Coachella Valley. He has 5 assists and leads all defensemen in shots on goal per game at 2.13. Has played 1 game with the Kraken this year, as you can see in the reverse retros against the Winnipeg Jets, an overtime loss there. So that sort of move comes after, obviously there's the Alexiak suspension, so that's why Kel Fleury played in last night's game. But also in last night's game, Ryan Lomberg of Florida got hit a little bit by Justin Schultz in a play, and as retaliation, Lomberg boarded Justin Schultz and kind of messed him up. He left the game, went straight to the tunnel. After that, caused a fight. And so the move to bring up Gustav Olofsson is the reason. The move to bring up Gustav Olofsson is a corresponding move to Schultz's injury, I'm sure. We don't have an official word on. Let me see. I don't believe so. No, we don't have an official word on the Schultz injury, but I can imagine if Olofsson was already brought up, it's not a good move. It's not a good sign, pardon me. Also, on the 12th, as you already saw, the team claimed Eli Tolvainen off of waivers. As a corresponding move, Carson Kuhlman was placed on waivers. Tolvanen has a stat line of 26 goals, 26 assists, 51 points over 135 NHL games, and is a 23-year-old, who is a former first-round pick by Nashville. Just the general idea that I get from looking into this guy is that he's a fourth liner, which is fine. That's what Kuhlman was, and he didn't make too much of an impact, I have to say. The shot that this guy has is what's the most impressive. And our buddies at Emerald City Hockey have said if the coaching staff is able to unlock that shot, he can be a contributor to this team. I mean, he's young, 23 years old, former first-round pick by Nashville. Not the worst stats over 135 NHL games, but obviously I'm sure he was placed on waivers for a reason. And he could be a contributor to this team. Again, the same person I've been discussing with. We talked about Carson Kuhlman, and a lot of the times when Kuhlman gets ice time, it's not necessarily as effective as it has been this year. Last year, a little bit more after being claimed off of waivers, about a little over halfway through the year. But this year is just effectively doing cardio on the ice. And that's, you got to be able to contribute, especially when Kuhlman comes in. He's usually a scratch. So, when a scratch is able to get time, you'd like to see some sort of impact being made, some sort of positive outlook. It just hasn't happened. So move here potentially will be exciting to see what Tolvanen is able to contribute in his time in Seattle Threads. So we look ahead here. We don't have any league news for you. We look ahead to the upcoming games for Seattle and this road trip continuing. Their record sits at 16 wins, 8 losses, 3 overtime losses, sitting at second in the Pacific Division at 35 points as the LA Kings lost last night, which the Seattle has a tiebreaker over them. Looking ahead, December 13th at the Tampa Bay Lightning is a 4 p.m. puck drop. So Seattle heads down to the 2020-2021 back-to-back Stanley Cup champions to try to build a win streak. And then December 15th at the Carolina Hurricanes is a 4 p.m. Pacific time puck drop as well. So you get a rematch against the Hurricanes after a brutal blowout loss to them earlier in the season at your house. And then Seattle will return home on December 18th against the Winnipeg Jets for a 5 p.m. Pacific time puck drop. That is a rematch as well, as you saw with the Gustav Olofsson photo. So Seattle hoping to sort of it's a tough road trip to end on, a tough 2 games to continue, but if we see a lot more of the team that we saw last night, I have more confidence in this Kraken team than not. So nothing directly rain related as we switch our gears, but we do have some league related notes. On the 5th, Chicago Red Stars owner Arlen Whistler is selling his stake in the team. So another owner that is that has done bad things, is selling his stake in the team. So that's good to see, especially with the move from Merritt Paulson selling his stake in selling the Portland Thorns. So you just like to get all the bad apples out of the NWSL. You obviously want to see this league succeed, and having people like Whistler and Paulson in the league don't help that. On the 9th, it was announced that Brazil, Canada, and Japan, those national teams will join the U.S. women's national teams in the 2023 She Believes Cup. So some smaller news there. We head over to our Seattle Seawolves, who, as I said, continue to be busy. On December 5th, the team signed number 8/flanker Ronan Foley. He is signed through the 2023 season. Foley was a late season MLR signee for the Toronto Arrows in 2021, producing several strong performances in his short season. Racking up 27 tackles with a 90% completion rating, 129 carry meters on 21 carries, 47 ruck arrivals, 4 tackle breaks, 4 lineout takes, and a breakdown steal. In the 2022 season, he finished number 1 in the MLR for the number 8 position in run meters, meters gained, tackles made, clean breaks, and was voted the 2022 Player of the Year by the Toronto Arrows. Originally from Ireland, Foley first joined the Arrows after playing with his hometown club, University College Dublin of the All-Ireland League. The loose forward started with UCD's U20 program in 2016 and was promoted to the senior side as an underager 1 year later. Awarded the club player of the season and players player of the season in 2017 to 2018, Foley captained UCD in the club's pandemic-shortened 2020-2022 season. 2021, pardon me. Foley represented Ireland at the 2018 Six Nations U20s Championship and has featured for Leinster A and earned 1 cap with Leinster's senior side in 2019. with a comment from Coach Clarkey. When Andrew Durutalo decided to retire, I was excited at the opportunity to recruit someone of Ronan's caliber. His positional stats for MLR 2022 are standout. He adds significant quality to our forward unit with the ability to play across the back row. So as the Seawolves admin has hinted on, they weren't done. On December 7th, the team signed prop Jake Turnbull, 29-year-old, 6'2", out of Waverly College, has spent time with 3 MLR clubs, now 4 with the Seawolves. Those previous 3 being the Houston SaberCats, Old Glory DC, and the Austin Gilgronis. In the 2022 season, Turnbull became the 18th player in MLR to take the pitch for 50 matches. Coach Clark said, I am thrilled that a player of Jake's quality and ambition has chosen to join our club. He arrives with notable frontline MLR experience and adds significant competition to our front row. We're delighted to welcome Jake and his partner Tegan to the Seawolves family for the 2023 season and beyond. So looking at all of that, looking with the accomplishments of Foley, Turnbull, look at Mooneyham last week, Peterson as well. The Seawolves team continues to add talent. It's incredible. Veteran talent. I know that Foley's not, the youngest guy in the world, but with Mooneyham, this is a team, granted that they did so with Austin and LA being disqualified from the playoffs. This is a team in Seattle that fought their way, from the last week of the season through the playoffs to an MLR title appearance, falling short against Rugby New York. This is a team that's adding talent. They're reloading after making that appearance. I know that 2020, shortened season, 2021 didn't go the way as expected, but 2022 was overall solid. I know Rickard Hadding will be out for the earlier part of the season, but this team, with the talent they're adding, has to have you a little bit excited. I know if you're maybe leaking into the Seawolves segment, you're not typically checking out our Seawolves part of this show. This is a team that's won 2 MLR titles already, and they're one of the most well-respected franchises in Major League Rugby. So to see them continuing to add, seeing them continue to reload after MLR title appearance is exciting. Just knowing that what this organization has accomplished and what they're capable of going forward. And I'm really excited for the MLR season. Excuse me. To begin and to get back to it. So now we'll switch over here to our Seattle SeaDragons, who unveiled their 2023 jerseys. I know that there was a little bit of debate about them. We'll give you a look here. There was a little bit of debate. People weren't exactly too excited about it. You can see them on the mannequin on the left, on Ben DiNucci on the right. We'll give you a look here at the uniform combinations: the orange top, the white bottoms, the white top, the orange bottoms. These jerseys are made by Under Armour. We'll show you the helmet. The process was a collaboration between XFL ownership, marketing, and Under Armour teams. Each jersey features a blood, sweat, respect mantra, a personal message from ownership to players, which is sublimated on the interior collars of all team uniforms. We're just going to keep this short as I continue to show you the uniforms here. I'm okay with the orange. I know that was a key sticking point last time the XFL existed, but it was more the blue and the green were also more integrated in it. You can see here the orange is taking more of a primary spot. I know a lot of people compared them to the Denver Broncos uniforms. I understand that. I'll give them a chance. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give them a chance, see them on the players, see them in games, but I can understand where the likening for that is. I want to also go over some league news here, some notable rules in XFL if you're unfamiliar. So obviously the XFL is American football, similar to the NFL in a good amount of ways, but there are ways that they're different. There are 2 options to keep the ball after scoring. You can get a traditional onside kick anytime during the game, or a 4th and 15 conversion from your own 25-yard line, which is only available in the 4th quarter. On kickoffs, the kicking team and return team start play 5 yards apart and eliminates high-speed collisions and enhances player safety. Per the XFL, 92% kickoff returns in the XFL 2.0 compared to 39.6% in the NFL. The average XFL drive started the 29-yard line compared to the 25-yard line in the NFL. I know that was something that a lot of teams that the NFL actually looked at when the XFL 2.0 existed. And extra points, so tiered extra points are back from XFL 2.0. Teams will have 3 options for extra points following a touchdown. If you start at the 2-yard line, it's a 1-point conversion. From the 5-yard line, it's a 2-point conversion. Or the 10-yard line is a 3-point conversion. It replaces the traditional kick, providing teams a chance to score more points and build excitement within the game. It was pretty exciting when it was around. So we will wrap up here with our Seattle Star of the Week. It's not a team, not a Seattle team, but rather a place. Rough and Tumble Pub recently opened. They had their opening weekend this past week. Just a quick, we'll go over Rough and Tumble for you here. A quote directly from the website: "We play women's sports on big screens with full sound, served up with good food and good friends. We've got a seat for every fan who wants to tune in and turn it up, no matter if that's on the court or the pitch, college or pro, icon or underdog. 18 screens in a space for 160 of your closest friends. We like to think of it as the most intimate stadium experience Seattle has to offer. Cold beer within reach, a full menu that knows both classic and home team favorites, and a stunning space that's anything but the cheap seats. Located in the historic Henry White Building, Rough and Tumble's inaugural home is one of storied history with hand-hewn beams, high ceilings, and industrial windows that open up to the Salish Sea. The pub retains the feel of the site's original sawmill. We're honored to carry forward the legacy of grit and gumption that shaped this place, adding women's sports to the roster of ways the region has always pushed for better." So Rough and Tumble Pub, if you can't get it from that sort of general introduction there, is the first primarily women's sports bar in Seattle. It's, I believe, the second on the West Coast. Sports Bra in Portland was the first there. The owners of the Sports Bra were actually at the VIP opening the night before the grand opening. And it's a really cool spot. I went there for that VIP opening and for opening night. To watch that Kraken game against the Capitals, which was unfortunate, but it's a great atmosphere. If you love local, I mean, we're Circling Seattle Sports. The local thing is kind of inherently built in. A lot of local beers, a lot of locally sourced food. If we look at the menu, a lot of the options are named after Seattle sports icons. LJ's Jalapeno Bites, Lauren Jackson, Gold Mamba Nachos, Jewel Lloyd. The Lulu is a salad. That's Lou Barnes. The Quinny Chop, Quinn with the rain. I was getting ahead of myself. The salads, the Stewie, Breanna Stewart. The Rainstorm Burger is, I don't need to explain that too much. The Bird, which is a chicken sandwich. Sue Bird, Fish Lock and Chips, just Fish Lock. Let's see, where else? The OG BLTA, I'm sure that's a reference to the rain. Let's see, what else do we get here? But you can get the idea. It's a great space in Older Ballard, right on Shilshole Avenue. Been there a few times. A great location. Talking about the windows that open up to this Salish Sea, that'll be a great spot in the summer and in the spring with the Women's World Cup coming up this summer. It's awesome. Jen Barnes, the owner, has been awesome to us. A lot of the staff members already know what we do here at Circling Seattle Sports, so that's great to see. So I want to give a big shout out to them, for having us at the VIP opening, opening night. Just incredible, and I'm excited to be there, for all of the away games, that our Rain and Storm are playing, is also just in general, obviously we're at all of the home games here in this city, but those away games need somewhere to really call home, and Rough and Tumble is going to be that spot. And excited to see the growth of that and see that place packed for years and years to come, hopefully. So that's going to wrap it up here as we look ahead. The Seahawks play a tough game on Thursday night against the 49ers coming up that could play a spot in their season fortune. The Mariners continued their offseason. I know a lot of people are hoping that they do some damage in free agency, but we might have to be patient for that. The Storm are looking ahead to their 2023 schedule and still have to make a lot of moves at free agency in the draft. The Sounders could be loaning young Reed Baker Whitting to SC Freiburg, and that's still up for decision to be made. The Kraken are coming off an impressive win against the Panthers, but have a tough road ahead with 2 games left on their road trip before returning home. The OL Reign remained quiet over the offseason, but we continue to roll through their offseason as well. The Seawolves continued to add talent to their roster, and they're looking to maybe hoist the third MLR shield in 2023. And the Seattle SeaDragons unveiled their uniforms as we continue to inch closer and closer to XFL 3.0 kicking off in February. So until we see you next week on, oh boy, we're going to be on December 19th. We're really approaching the holidays here, folks. I want to remind you, happy holidays. Be safe out there on the ice and the slick. I kind of roughed up my palms a little bit here. Take care of yourself. Just remember that, life is about moments. Want to give our thoughts to Bell, Rod, and Matt as well, and hoping to see them back with us again whenever they are ready to make that turn. Appreciate Curtis back behind the camera doing what he does to get us looking as good as I can, right? And until we see you next week, do whatever you can to make today a great day.